The following is a presentation of the St. Louis Chess Club.
Play is heating up at the 2024 FIDE Candidates in Toronto, Canada. It may be cold outside, but inside the playing hall, these grandmasters are on fire. After failing to capitalize on his chances in round one, Fabiano Caruana asserted his dominance against the field's only 2,600 rated player, taking the win and his first full point. Dodging potential disaster with a round one draw, Hikaru Nakamura was not so lucky in his second outing, losing with the white pieces to India's Vidit Gujrathi. Zhongyi continues to sizzle, notching a second straight win to maintain her half-point lead in the women's section. We have our first co-leaders. Will they continue to stay hot or hit a cold spell? Day 3 of exciting chess, coming up next.
Welcome to round 3 of the 2024 FIDE Candidates here in Toronto. Fighting continues at the Great Hall, where next candidate for the World Championship match will be decided. Let's go to the studio and follow the action.
Yesterday was a day of decisive rounds as leaders start to emerge. Day 3 of exciting action starts right now. Hello and welcome everyone. I'm International Master Nazi Paikidze and I'm here with my co-hosts, Grandmaster Yasser Seirawan and Evgeny Miroshnichenko.
Nazi, beautiful to see you. You too, Miro. Hello everyone, and what a spectacular round we had yesterday. My goodness, 4 out of 4 decisive games in the open section. The ladies merely went 2 for 2. 2 draws, 2 wins, and the standings were both shaken and stirred. Do the honors, Nasi. Let's have a look at the open standings first.
In the open section, we have 4 co-leaders: Fabiano Caruana, Nepomniachtchi, Gukesh and Vidit with 1.5.
Just as we were coming in the studio, we saw a draw between Nijat and Hikaru. So they've actually already completed their game, but yeah. Alireza. And in the ladies' standings.
And in the ladies section, we have a sole leader, Zhongyi, with, that was before.
Yeah, yes.
She had the perfect score.
2 out of 2. Yes.
She already finished her game against Koneru, and she's still in the lead with 2.5. Goryachkina still playing with 1.5, closely following.
Right.
And with 50%, Lagno and Nurgil Salimova.
And for 10, that was a really nice result, drawing with the black pieces against somebody who's actually had her number. And the pairings for today, let's start with the open.
Exciting matchups. We have Abasov Hikaru game that already finished in a draw.
Right.
Firouzja playing Fabiano Caruana.
Big matchup there.
Gukesh against Nepomniachtchi.
Also.
2 co-leaders.
Right.
And Vidit against Prague.
Nice. And for the ladies' pairings?
And in the ladies, we had 1 result, but still playing Muzychuk against Lagno, Tingjie against Goryachkina, and Vaishali against Salimova.
And the schedule. It's going to be a long event, isn't it, Nasi?
Indeed, 14 rounds total. Today we have a 3rd round, and rest day coming up Monday.
Looking forward to it, I saw.
And we might have tie breaks if necessary on Monday, April 22nd.
Excellent. Great. And Miro, after yesterday, it's like dig down and tell us about the crucial pairings matchups for today's
let
match.
Let me keep it secret for now. So Fabiano Caruana is playing. He's the top seed. He's leading the tournament. Guess who is? Well, marquee matchup, of course, his game against Alireza Firouzja. So that's one of the most important games in round 3. While, as you can see, Fabi leads head-to-head with 5 wins against 1 win for Firouzja with 6 draws. So not that many games were played, one would argue, but let's not forget Firouzja is just 20 years old. Yeah. Fabi, the most experienced player in the candidates. It's his 5th candidates tournament. he has a tremendous record in the candidates apart from the second half of Madrid. So he had a fantastic score. He still has like +6, if I'm not mistaken, and it could have been many, many more if not for an unlucky second half of the previous candidates.
Right.
So very good chance for Fabi. Well done winning yesterday, and today he has to be a bit careful because, yeah, black pieces, and Alireza, even though he lost, he is a man to watch out because he was named by Magnus himself as one of the, unique, very talented contenders that Magnus would accept to play the match. So let's see what this man has up his sleeve. And the second game we'll be concentrating on is Gukesh against Nepomniachtchi. Well, two tournament leaders. Well, not a lot of history between those two. 1 draw and 1 win for Gukesh in WR Masters tournament, the tournament where Gukesh was on fire, beat Magnus Carlsen himself, and so on and so forth. Gukesh, before the start, I believe no one would predict him. Well, we all understand he's strong, but inexperienced, but, unstable and so far. So far, 1.5, white pieces today, who's unstable?
Right, impressive.
Right, and later on we'll look at the game. He has quite a comfortable advantage against Jan. So I think this would be it for now. We do have other games which are very, very important and interesting, of course. But first, let's hear from Toronto. Let's hear what's going on in the tournament hall.
Welcome to round 3 of the FIDE candidates. We are here in Toronto with Nastya, who will be taking over, and I'm going to play tournaments, but I will be rooting for our guys from there, and I wish them the best of luck. Now, Nastya, welcome.
Thank you, Evgeny. Thank you for taking over while I was still fighting with my visa. But I'm so happy finally to reach Toronto, to be here. I actually came yesterday when we had this fantastic decisive round. 4 games finished decisively, and Fabi managed to win his first game in the candidates tournament. Nakamura lost, but I was really shocked to see this game when I came here. And a lot of action is happening here.
And we are definitely lucky to have you here too.
Thank you so much. And what I will do, I will definitely do some interviews with players. I will also check the fan zone. I will go around and see what's going on. But of course, everyone, don't forget to follow our social media accounts, St. Louis Chess Club accounts, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, because we're going to show a lot of action there too. So please stay with us and, of course, have a great round 3.
Thank you, Anastasia. A big, warm welcome to you. I know it's cold in Toronto, so nice to have you alongside Begum. The players are really fighting to become challenger, but there's also a nice prize money. Tell us about the prize money in the Open.
All right, let's take a look. There's very nice prizes. The first place winner is going to get 48,000 euros. Second place, 36,000. Third place, 24,000. And in addition, each player will receive 3,500 euros for every half point scored.
7,000 euros for each victory is nice to go on a winning streak.
Great motivation.
Indeed. And for the ladies?
And for the ladies, first place is 24,000 euros, second place 18, third 12, and they will also have in addition 1,750 euros for every half point scored.
Very nice. And let's get to it, Miro. Play is underway, round 3. Let's jump to the game between Alireza and Fabi. Last move, Queen D2 by Alireza. I was not a fan.
Okay, I would start from the very beginning, to be honest, or rather quite a few first moves. Something to note, because very often we say classical chess is boring because they've prepared throughoutly to like move 30.
Right.
This is move 16. Both players down to, 45 minutes for Alireza, 49 for Fabi. And let me tell you something, the new move happened on move 8. It's a very original opening.
Unexplored territory.
Right, so it started with the Rossolimo Sicilian, we call it, And I think at some point we should just give up and call it the mainline Sicilian, right? So, well, for those of you who do not know, well, mainline often referred to the Sicilian with D2, D4, of course. Yeah. But interestingly, after knight C6, nowadays you rarely see D2, D4 on a high level. So bishop B5 almost substituted for the main line. Right. Knight to F6, and this is already not the most popular move. Right. I think I would be safe to say that both G6 and E6 would be the main lines. And then Abasov yesterday against Fabi, he has played E7, E5. Right. Okay, so knight to F6, knight to C3, knight to D4, E5. That one is still theoretical. Takes the bishop, knight takes the bishop, knight to D5. And according to my knowledge, in, I wouldn't say childhood, but let's say in my 20s, the player who would play this with black would be criticized because after knight G5, white, well, was believed to be winning or close to winning, huge advantage. Now, if you check the database, and I did, so F7, F6, this ugly-looking move, people realize that it works, and yeah, black is okay. So therefore, knight G5 was not played. Instead, Firouzja has played C4, confirmed by computer to be the best move. Knight to C7, and then I think that's the moment he started to spend time. So that means, I don't know what it means, to be honest, because like
what
preparation,
else did you expect?
Preparation over on move 7, unlikely. Right. Anyway, so knight to C7 was one of the options. Computer is voting for castling short, interestingly, waiting for black to perhaps exchange on B5 himself. So what happened was knight to C3, D7, D5, well, very logical, reacting in the center, and D5 happens to be a novelty. There have been a couple of games, there was knight E6 and G6, so a couple of games of position is already quite rare. D5 looks very logical. What looks a bit less logical, and this is what we discussed with Yasser a little bit before the game, Fabi did not recapture with the queen. So queen to D6, not only because it's recommended by computer, which you guess is a good move, but optically, and that's very common Sicilian response, right? Exactly. So take with the queen. Now you probably have an idea to go E5 if your opponent lets you. Yeah. So perhaps white would have to play D4 immediately. Black looks quite solid. Instead, he captures with the pawn. There is nothing wrong with capturing with the pawn. However, after a few more moves, it does look a bit more pleasant for white. So there is this tension in the center, and for black, it's not that easy to resolve it. So you hardly can play D5 with white's bishop on F4, because bishop's going to take the knight, knight's going to take the pawn. You don't really want to take on D4, right? Because you'd be left with the D6 pawn.
Knight takes D4.
So Fabi goes about it in a well, you know, in a funny way, I would say. Goes to E6, bishop E3, and says, I just go back. Wow. I give you, well, a tempo, right. I would argue 2, but bishop E3, F4 is not really a tempo. But yeah, play a move. And Firouzja plays a move, which is H2, H3, well, perhaps preventing bishop to G4, bishop F5, rook E1, rook E8, all that was good. And now, again, according to the machine, bishop back to F4, and if knight E6 happens, bishop to G3, something like that, white would have been slightly better, slightly more pleasant, no big thing. Instead, he continues with seemingly very logical queen to D2, and Fabi finds D5, after which, well, once again, according to the machine, position is equal. No moves. Yeah, no move from Firouzja after D5. The main line goes CD5 and C4. C4, and then black perhaps just wins this pawn somehow. So if knight E5, knight takes D5, and maybe it's not as easy, right? It's easy for the computer. It's, I'd say it's a sort of a problem nowadays, that when you analyze with the computer too much, you tend to trust it because it plays better than you, and in some lines you do not check further because computer says it's equal. But whenever you start checking, it turns out you have to play quite a few very precise moves. Yasser, would you say that this one is equal? If you count the pawns, white is a pawn up, right?
I would prefer white.
Absolutely.
I mean, the two bishops of compensation.
Compy says it's enough of a compensation. So rook to c8, and
You go back
the
to
knight
d5.
is not very comfortable, right? You don't want to go to b2, so you go here, then f7, f6, chasing this knight back and forth. I'm still not convinced, to be honest. Like, knight d3, is it this equal?
I think it's the white squares, the black bishop on
perhaps.
f5. I prefer to sacrifice pawns.
You
I
like
grab
the dynamic
Absolutely.
compensation you get with the light squared bishop.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm saying this compensation, but I would take white in that particular case.
Okay.
But d5 is the current position.
Right,
Okay,
and this perhaps seems to be, the line to go for with white.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you
Absolutely.
do, like in all the other lines I'm checking, it does something stupid, like takes on c5, black takes on c4, we exchange everything, and black has no trouble whatsoever. So the
Exactly.
critical line would be indeed to take on d5, to go after this pawn, and try to prove that not much is happening.
All right, thank you, Miro. And we're going to move around the horn a little bit. Let's jump to this game that Miro highlighted. That's the game between Gukesh and Jan, because these two players are tied for first. And that's a nice feeling to have when you're playing in the candidates to be tied for first. And
Any win gives you such boost of confidence.
absolutely. Now, first impressions are 4 versus 4, 2 versus 2. I tend to look at the structure first. And then after that, I say, okay, we're in this kind of Queen's Gambit accepted type of ending, but white has the freer play. I mean, the pawns on e5 and f4, they make a nice impression, right?
White has a
Nazi?
space advantage and very pleasant position, but
Right.
how do we improve? That's a different question.
Exactly. I was about to say the knight on c5 looks really good. I mean, if you were going to ask me what would be the best square for the knight, I would certainly pick c5 at the moment. Jan's bishop on c8 needs to get in the game. And his last move, rook d8, is basically saying, okay, I recognize that your rook on the d file is more active than mine. Let's trade them off. In this type of position, you're right. At a certain moment, I'm going to make a stance, whether I'm going to play g4 and f5. But before I make such a commitment, I tend to want to say, is everybody working? Is everybody on their best squares? So I look around and congratulations to Gukesh. All of his pieces are actually very active. Maybe there's only one guy who would improve, King F2. But it's at a certain moment, Nasi, you're thinking to yourself as white, I've got to do something concrete.
But also maybe he doesn't have to rush because let's say if he takes his time to just slowly improve his position, I doubt black can really fix all his problems that quickly.
Well, and definitely it's not going to be quick at all. I'm thinking that Jan might be thinking about rook takes d1. Also, just as I was about to say, should we trade rooks? Also, maybe Jan starts to think b5. Am I hanging a6 or am I getting counterplay?
I was going to suggest b4 for white, just to forget about black's idea of playing b4.
Okay, we do have takes, and Miro, jump in on the action here.
Oh, this one.
Yeah, white's a little bit better, but turning small advantages into something tangible and concrete, not so easy.
Yeah, well, computer goes a bit further than being a little bit better for white, and especially after this capture, which it values as a good move, take on d8, and then rook to c1 is the recommendation. Nothing concrete, it's just that we have two open files, D file and C file.
Right.
And interestingly, in this type of positions, because you have those from the Catalan very often, it was the Catalan, right? After all, yeah, you have it from the Catalan, from Queen's Gambit, accepted, and so on. Right, in these types of positions, interestingly, the D file is kind of less important, because both kings naturally come to the center and the squares on d7, on d2 would be covered. Like now white bishops cover the squares. So imagine black rook on d8, it wouldn't have any entrances. And the c file is somewhat more important. So it goes rook c1, it brings the king over. and it says like almost a pawn for white.
Ah.
And perhaps, well, there is also, it turns out there is also a concrete threat after
Knight
some
takes
consideration. Yeah, like just it is a greedy engine after all.
Right.
Takes on a6 and bishop takes. Yeah, let me just go along this line. Bishop to b7, one wins back the e4 pawn. So this happens.
Okay.
And yeah, captures on e4, some checks. Yeah, well, computerish stuff, I would say so. So there is no clear, not a clear point in this line that I would stop and say, okay, white is a pawn up or white's better. It goes on and on and on.
Well, for Gukesh, that is certainly a nice situation to be had. You're tied for first. You're playing against an opponent also tied for first, who you stand better. I think Gukesh is going to be very satisfied. We're going to go to the game of Vidit versus Prague. And, okay, this is crazy. This is chaos. This is a game, I mean, as we were coming on air, we just... First of all, we were trying to think of what was the name.
I remember I asked you what you thought of f5, and you took a long pause.
Right.
Why would he do that?
Why would you do that? Why in the candidates? Now, in this particular position, the Janusz gambit, we know is the move f7, f5. When you include the move a7, a6, you're moving the bishop from a potentially vulnerable square. For example, as we were talking about in the car, pawn takes, knight takes d5, knight takes e5 is one of those variations. Maybe it's not very good for black, but it's one of those variations where we can demonstrate why the bishop is a bit vulnerable on the b5 square. So when you're going to play f5, you normally don't include the move a6. And that would be the Morphy defense. And now f5, we don't even have a name for it. This actually started to look like a King's Gambit reversed.
Absolutely. I was about to say, this looked like Falbert Conte Gambit.
Yeah,
right.
With an extra tempo or two for white. This is like
a bit confusing.
Why would you do this in a
I'll tell you what, Yasser. While you were discussing this, I was looking at the current position, and black is actually better. So his risk paid off so far.
We'll catch up with that. So knight a5, knight takes d4. Now we just kind of pause for a second because, again, visually it looks like things are really going in white's favor.
Black's king looks so exposed.
Definitely. f5 is a weak pawn. In fact, in the next few moves, we're going to see that white won the pawn on f5. Now, incredibly, for me, it was like both players seemed to be kind of chill, like this was part about the oppression. I was thinking takes queen d7, queen e2, king f7, and my computer said
black is better.
Slightly better. And I was like, what? Right. I'm 2 pawns up and I've moved your king? No. We're going to catch up with the players. Oops, sorry, that did not happen. Takes, knight takes, a takes. No, I did it wrong. I apologize. I just have to refresh my board. Here we go. This happened.
But it didn't take the pawn. His pawn is still on
Queen
e6.
e2, right? And by the way, right, what was previously played in this position?
Was takes d6, I believe.
Yeah, that was taking on d6. Queen e2, queen d7. Let's get caught up with the players because you, Nasi, just informed me that in the current position, black is to be preferred.
And
Why?
Also, let's take a look at the time. Prague's prep today is really paying off. He still has almost full 1 hour on the clock.
Wow, impressive.
Vidit down to 22 minutes.
And okay, I'm a pawn up, Miro. Why am I worse?
The bishop on b7, I would consider. That's your main problem. So
that's a big guy.
Right. So the plan for black would be to castle long,
bishop g7,
and to go g5, h5, and then just smash here. Maybe not even playing bishop g7.
Really?
But if I may, I have the position on the board before, as you said, white has won a pawn on f5. And apparently it's not the best idea.
To take that lousy guy.
Computer says Well, recommends few moves, knight to c3, castles a4, but castles is a spectacular one. You castle and you fall into a trap, so c5, and you can save the piece still by taking on g8, but you're not interested in. So you just take on f5, c4, and then I'm not sure that there are options, but for instance, you can give a check, provoke g6, and go to h3. Both of your pieces are hanging.
Take one.
Okay, f5 cannot be really captured because queen h5 and bishop g5 to follow.
Right.
But you can take the other one. You don't need to take the other one because it's trapped. So
Right.
black has the time. And guess what? White is slightly better.
So
Well, maybe it will change, but yeah, as of now, computer votes for white. After knight f5, though, knight takes b3, a b3, d6. Once again, castles to be preferred. After queen e2, queen d7, this is the first time where evaluation shifts in black's favor.
Wow. Queen e2, queen. Thank you for that, Miro. And as we were coming on air, a game had already been drawn. Hikaru joined Anastasia after the game for some very fresh comments. Hope you enjoy.
So here I'm with Hikaru Nakamura. Hikaru just made a draw, but after yesterday's game, what was your approach to this one, your preparation?
Yeah, so I mean, there were a couple of possibilities. Either I could just throw my game plan out the window and play something completely crazy, and maybe it would go my way, or maybe it wouldn't. But I think the experience of playing the candidates definitely played a huge role. I think when you've played a couple times and you've seen how generally the last couple of rounds crazy things tend to happen, it didn't feel like the moment to go crazy. And on top of that, I had a feeling that if my opponent was going to look at anything, he'd look at some of the openings that were most aggressive. And with someone like Shakira on Nijat's team, it just didn't make a whole lot of sense. And also because, frankly, if I were to lose today, I mean, on some level, you could say the tournament's over. Maybe I can go crazy every game and win like 5 in a row, but I mean, it's very easy. You can end up losing 3 or 4 in a row, and then like you're just basically on vacation for the last week. And I mean, it's more fun to at least have something to play for. So it just didn't seem right. And my opponent was very boring today. Apparently, he didn't feel very well. He was quite sick, as he told me after the game. So maybe if I'd known that, I would have done something different. But overall, it's what it is, and just very, very solid draw.
Yeah, maybe just a couple of moments in the game which you can show.
Yeah,
let's say, a couple of critical moments.
Yeah, I mean, there was. Well, first of all, I mean, he played the exchange Slav, which was, I mean, not a huge surprise. I thought he might do it, but I mean, my attitude was I felt that he would want to play more interesting chess, mainly because I think from his standpoint, at least, he's the one player here who, I mean, in reality, probably has no chance of winning the event. So I figure if he has a chance to play against the top players, do some preparation, try to play some interesting chess, maybe learn something, and without the sort of pressure or expectation to try and win the event, that's what I thought he'd be a little bit more principled. But as I said, he was sick, which I didn't know, and so he just played something very solid. I mean, the first moment was right here. After bishop d3, and I was debating here whether to play this move e5. I couldn't quite figure it out. Like this was actually the one moment that I didn't know, because he can obviously just trade everything off. We can get to some position like this, and it's probably going to be a boring draw. But he can also play. He can also go bishop g5, e4, takes, and I wasn't sure how to assess this. Very, very hard to judge. Like I have queen a5, king. I thought king f1 was maybe king e2. Like it's very, very tricky. I don't know what's going on here, and I also didn't think there was any risk of him losing. So, I mean, let's just say king e7 and something like rook d1. I mean, maybe the computer will say black is better here, but I don't really know how you're supposed to play this because the king is very weak on e7. I mean, of course, I could make some argument that at least the kings are on e2 and e7, so there's some kind of joke in there. But I just wasn't sure whether to do that because, first of all, if I'm wrong and he's prepared and this is actually good for white, then there's a good chance I lose the game. And if I'm right, it's still just going to be a dead draw anyway if he just trades everything on e5. So because of those reasons, I chose not to play that. And really the rest of the game I think was very, very boring. I mean, I was trying to induce him towards the end, somewhere around here. I was trying to induce him to play this move knight c5. This is what I was hoping he would go for, because after takes, I thought I was supposed to play knight e5 maybe, or maybe this one's unclear, something like b3 and a5, and I wasn't sure what was going on, but I didn't think I ever had any risk, and I thought I might be able to win this position potentially down the road.
Bring the king maybe?
Yeah, bring the king around. I mean, white, it's also very tricky though, because white has like f4 here, something like this, and I mean, if white gets a3, b4, white could even be better, but I didn't think I could really end up in trouble in any of these endgames, so I was kind of hoping he would do it, but then he didn't do that, and I mean, there's I mean, really at this point already, I mean, I could go king f8, I can play b6, but against a player who's as strong, it's, I mean, not something I'm going to win. I mean, in blitz game, I think I would win this, but in a classical game, no chance.
Yeah, okay, blitz game is different, but...
well, it's just knights are better than bishops in blitz games. That's what it is.
Exactly.
But in a normal game, it doesn't matter.
That's exactly the story here. And I want to ask you in general, how do you feel here in Toronto already a few days? And, I mean, so far, not apart from chess, let's say, what is your routine after
Yeah, I
games?
mean, it's okay. As I said at the start, I mean, the weather's horrible. Not a fan of it. Today it's better,
so
but
bad.
it's still too cold. I mean, I like the warm weather. I try to avoid spending time on the East Coast these days. There's a reason that I no longer spend time in New York, even though I grew up there. So the weather I'm not a huge fan of, but overall there are a lot of fans here, which is quite nice. I think it's good. And it's also a place I'm very familiar with, of course, with the Chess Champions Tour having been here the last couple of years. So yeah, it's nice to be here. It's decent.
You feel this support of fans here? I mean, when you go out from the building?
Some. I mean, it's fine. I mean, honestly, I really loved Madrid when I played there last time. I mean, the fans were
was crazy.
The fans were like very rowdy. It felt very sort of sporting. I mean, here it feels like there are a lot of fans. I mean, not to say that it's bad or anything, but just Madrid, I felt it more than I felt it here. So
yeah, I remember you had some problems to reach even the entrance.
Yeah, but I mean, it's Spain. It was summer. I mean, everything was great. So I preferred that, but I wouldn't say that it's terrible or anything. I mean, I know some of the other players have already been complaining about about the rooms too small or spectators, all this other stuff. But I mean, as I've said a few times already, I mean, it's not my fight at this point in my career. So I'll let everyone else deal with that.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much,
Sure.
Hikaru, and all the best of luck for the next rounds.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hikaru, thank you, Anastasia. Update our standings with this draw in our pockets.
Right, with that draw, Abasov and Hikaru joined the current leaders who are still playing their games and have 1.5 points. So there's 6 players with 1.5 points at the moment, right?
Wait a minute. Hikaru had a draw and a loss, and with this draw, he'll have 1 point. So I think they both get.
Oh, there's a mistake, I think.
Well, only that they've
I
drawn
see.
their
The
games,
scores
so
are
they've got
already
2 out of
updated.
3.
Okay, the current score is
yeah,
-1. All right.
they're -1. Okay, but let's jump to the ladies because we also have a result, one result in the ladies competition.
All right.
Humpy drew.
Well, what I have here is the game of Vaishali and Salimova.
All right.
Simply because it's the most interesting game, in my opinion. And before we jump to the chess part, I just wanted to correct Hikaru a little bit. When he said I would win this position in Blitz, he should have added with any color. We all know how good in Blitz he is, right?
He mentioned the knights, Miro.
Yeah. All right, so why I'm bringing you this? First of all, let's remind our viewers that ladies have a bit of a shorter time control.
Right.
So at that point that we are, move 16, white's time is 17 minutes, black's time is 10 minutes. And what happened in this position, so you could guess it was some sort of a Petrov defense. So up to this point, if you search the database, you would find some familiar names like Magnus Carlsen, Fabiano Caruana, and a lot of these guys played potentially with both colors. Right. Turns out, well, at least according to my database, Bishop d4 is a novelty as early as move 10. I don't know if it's any good, but nonetheless. Right, and then on move 13, black plays knight g4, allowing knight to f7, double exclamation mark. If you think of it, it looks really scary because you absolutely have to take the knight. That's what happened in the game. A check happens, king has to go back, and white has played queen to d3.
Quiet move.
White squares.
It's a quiet move, but with not so quiet threat of going to h7, threatening both g7 and g8.
Right.
Okay, and black is yet to react to this one. Computer has bishop e7 to f6 as the only move.
Makes sense.
After queen h7, that's still a huge threat, so you go to e6. White trades, rook takes back, queen to f5, and then white would have been better, but black has knight takes f2. And something like this, and as very, very often nowadays, you look at something exciting, at the line that goes like punches against the punches, a lot of tactic, and then you turn on the engine and it says it's equal. It's never been in anybody's favor.
Right.
So yeah, that would be the way for black to hold the equality after queen d3. But once again, black is down to 8 minutes. It's only move 16. So if white will find, if Vaishali will find a way just not to simplify the position entirely, she has a good chance, I believe.
Definitely.
A quick question for you there, though, Miro. Bishop f6, I understand why that's the only move, because but now you went queen h7, and then you brought the queen back to f5. So if you go queen g6, and you go bishop e6,
yeah, but then it goes to e7.
rook e1.
That's the difference. Rook to e1 and blocks with the horsey. And again, it's not that I'm that smart. I'm assisted by, you know, the strongest player in the studio, computer that is.
And actually, Miro, Salimova made a move, and it appears to be a blunder. She played bishop g5.
Black just played bishop g5 check, which is puzzling because pawn captures bishop and it's resignable according to the machine.
G5.
Queen g5. Let's check if white wins with kind of the only move.
f4?
Okay, one move is much better than the other, but it's the most natural move in the position. You go to b1 and this is +2 for white. So she definitely panicked after queen d3, perhaps missing this whole bishop f6, bishop e6 idea.
Oh dear, oh dear. Well, that's just great opening play. Turning our attention to the Lee versus Aleksandra game. This one also for me was, well, what can I say? It took me back to my childhood, if you will. I loved to play the Joko piano, but I played the Max Lang gambit, the Max Lang attack with d4. The Evans gambit with b4 was a favorite that I did very badly with. So I preferred the c3, d4 approach. But b4, bishop takes b4, and many years ago, there was a game between Nisipianu and Fabi where Fabi played like perfectly. And to my mind, completely refuted the gambit. Like you couldn't play the gambit anymore. Bishop takes e7. So I'm really curious to see what the ladies came up with to revive, if you will, the Evans gambit. Check, c7, c6. We're catching up to play. It's reminiscent of Hikaru's game from yesterday. He captured a center pawn for the flank pawn. Normally speaking, white is to be preferred.
In this case, though, white's king wasn't wakened, right? So.
It would be a different case if white's king was on b1, right? Knight g4, knight d2. Well, that was a fancy maneuver. Now, see, jump in on this one. If you were black, would you think, in your mind's eye, that the knight on f6 was misplaced? And you could scoot it over to g6?
Knight from f6 to g6?
Yeah.
See,
I mean, it's illegal.
For e5 player, that would never come to my mind.
Exactly. It's an illegal maneuver, but she took 3 tempi to move her knight to g6.
But it makes sense, because if she allowed e5 first, and then she goes knight g4, the knight gets stuck on g4 because white can play bishop f4, and then h3 is coming.
So you're thinking that the knight on f6 is potentially vulnerable, could get kicked around, so she moved it in anticipation of e5. That's a lot of tempi, to my eyes, in what I think is an open position. Normally speaking, you're not supposed to go maneuvering when the game's wide open. Anyway, a few moves later, there was a series of trades, and we have caught up to this position on the board.
Quite equal, right?
Well, 4 versus, yeah. It does look balanced materially. Some changes from the predictions. We had this predictive model based on ELO, and then we massaged it with some intangibles. Let's get an update now that we have some tournament leaders.
And we have updated predictions.
Okay.
So we had Fabi at 8.5. Now we think he can do better. he can do 9.
Okay, now Hikaru, who's lost a game, our prediction, boy, we've got a model that doesn't, I mean, it liked Hikaru at the start of the tournament, it still likes Hikaru after a loss, Miro.
No, but it adjusted. So yesterday he was supposed to make a draw, if you think, like
Right.
it goes accordingly. No, what I'm interested in is Abasov is still predicted to score 4.5. So
Right.
that means his lost yesterday
didn't
didn't
affect-
change much for the machine.
But did it
All the others have been
improve?
changed.
Yes.
Vidit's improved. Oh,
Gukesh has improved, Jan has
and
improved.
Firouzja and Prague lost yesterday. So.
Definitely. Okay, so that's our updated predictions after 2 rounds of play. What other game for the ladies have you got for us, Miro?
Right, so we've got Humpy, Koneru
Yeah,
and
if you don't mind, tell us
Zhongyi
how-
already finished, right?
That was a
And-
draw. If you don't mind, just show us that final position. It was a very
Yeah,
balanced
well,
game, I want to say.
Final position,
Was 4
it's
versus
not much to talk about.
Right.
Yeah. So I'll just it was. Let me quickly find out what opening it was.
It was a reverse
that means
Grunfeld.
yeah. Okay, that's what you call it, right? So C5, Bishop G2, Knight to C6. Yeah, why reversed? Because White plays as Black would,
Right.
has an extra tempo, and interestingly, I would expect White to have an advantage.
Right.
But never happened. Never happened, and it is
Obviously, officially a draw as we came
officially a draw.
Right.
Right, yeah, it was a draw already.
Right.
Anyway, there's one more game just quickly. Anna Muzychuk against Katerina Lagno, and that's interesting. So now they are representing different countries and so on and so on.
Right.
Originally both from Ukraine, and
Right.
they are rivals since age of 10, I believe.
10?
Right, yeah. I think we played like all Ukrainian, team tournament. I don't remember what it is, but I remember 2 girls like barely reaching the last rank. They were already kind of stars in their age group.
Wow.
Anyway,
This position came from what opening, if you
this
don't mind?
position came from the Rui Lopez, as some
Anti-Marshall with
some
H3,
people
I
call
think.
it the Spanish, right? So
Yes.
bishop to B7, D5. It's one of those lines that Peter Swidler would explain you everything.
Right.
I just know that this does exist. I
And
know
World
it's a pawn
Championship
sacrifice. I know no one's interested usually in taking this pawn.
Right.
But don't ask me why. And we could press this button and find out there is no games in the database.
Really?
Yeah.
That's very surprising.
How is that possible?
Exactly. How is that possible?
Knight D5? No, how can this be? No.
You got a bum
I just
database.
pressed the wrong button. Yeah, you see, it's not enough to have the machine.
Right.
One has to press the right buttons. Anyway, move 20. Let me click here. Move 20 looks even.
Even.
Yep. Possibly one would say, like, if White manages to press on the A file, maybe kind of more compact of a structure White
Right.
has. So slight potential.
Right.
C4 takes here. A4, and A4 is an attempt to fourth matters.
Right.
And Anna, I think she managed to keep this A pawn. And yeah, that's pretty much it. That's how the position looks right now.
Okay. This
So
sure looks
it is a passed pawn on the A file, right? The rooks are behind, so potentially, like with one rook, I'd be kind of even more happy,
Right.
Because rook is known to be well placed behind the passed pawn, kind of pushing it forward instead of dragging it. With 2 rooks, not so much,
No.
right? So
feels closer
So-
to equality. If this, with this draw, I wanted to say, tell us about the standings in the ladies.
Right, let's take a look. We have Zhongyi with 2.5 points out of 3. What an amazing start.
Truly.
Goryachkina 1.5. She's still playing, hoping to catch up with 10. And Humpy Koneru already finished her game and has 1.5. And Lagno and Salimova with 50% still playing their games.
Right. Again, it doesn't show it on, it's a dry statistic. Starting with 2 wins is fantastic. But again, making a draw with the black pieces against Humpy was really a big deal in the sense that Tan had lost 4 times before and only made a single draw. So making a draw against somebody having trouble with is bad news. Back to you, Miro, and this bishop g5 check. You wanted to say
Right.
something else?
I was to suggest that let's go back to open, but then I'm checking this game, and we've said, okay, bishop g5, terrible blunder. We don't know the reason, but terrible blunder. It's the end. It's Vaishali against Salimova.
Yes.
But fun doesn't stop here, because white, for whatever reason, went king b1.
Are we
Which
sure
would
there
allow
is
black.
no mistake in that?
And that's another thing that I wanted to clarify, that the electronic board was okay, the one that sends us moves from the Toronto, because it does look weird. Then bishop to f6 would be returned to our line where black had defense.
Right.
And instead, reportedly, knight e5 was played.
I mean, the bishop hanging on g5 for 2 moves kind of does not make any sense.
Yeah.
Truly.
And then queen h7's winning, bishop e5, the move she played, is winning as well. We are about to find out, because bishop e5 is played.
Right.
And after rook e5, which you probably do capture the bishop, white has to take on g5 or she's a piece down. Right? So we will figure out if the bishop is on g5 or not.
Well, that's one of those where you say, excuse me, why did you put your pawn on h4? If not, to open up the position. Wanted to turn our attention to the game of Alireza and Fabi, because when we left it, we really thought that Alireza's previous move, queen d2, that wasn't really the move that...
We said that the engine didn't love it, but then when we were analyzing, white was up a pawn, and we were saying, is that enough compensation for black or not?
Right, but it seemed to be more testing. The problem with the move queen d2 as played was that Fabi got this break in very nicely, d6, d5. After captures, he followed it up with c4. The problem from white's point of view is he cannot drift. He must do something very concrete, because the 2 bishops is a long-term advantage. Here, we've been looking at knight e5 and knight takes c4 as a way of getting a material advantage for the 2 bishops. That was not what Alireza chose. He played bishop f4, knight takes d5, and rook e5. I don't know. No, we're not caught up with players yet.
Yes, they played a couple more moves, and Firouzja just took the pawn on c4, so he...
Now.
One more move, yes.
I see.
So he's up a pawn, but it might be just temporary, because black has bishop f6, and then maybe rook d8 or something even more. White has to...
Rook takes e8, right? I'm just going to follow
takes
you.
back.
Yes, yes. So I've got 2 bishops. But that is a strange thing.
Well,
Did he have to give up the pawn on c4?
I just noticed white doesn't have to take rook e8. We could play rook c5.
There's a lot of questions here. Just a second. So,
bishop e6 is what computer says.
Right.
Yes, you felt it right.
Something is wrong.
There is not terrible. Knight takes e3 is not terrible, but according to the machine, once again, the best move was bishop to e6.
Something very simple.
Right. Then bishop g5. I imagine that's what you are afraid of, like bishop g5.
I'm not
and both
afraid.
says h6.
Yeah.
Bishop e7, rook e7, rook a to e1.
Okay.
And
A little bit
like the
unpleasant.
concentration of the white, and then it says like go rook c7, for instance, which is uncomfortable to play, I would argue.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. For me, the question is why did Fabi feel that he should sacrifice a pawn?
Instead of queen d7, maybe he could have played bishop d3 and defended the pawn here.
For
like to take on c6, right? Or take on c3 and go bishop d3.
I guess there's knight e1, and
there is knight
you're
e1.
still going to probably lose the pawn.
There's knight e1. Good point. In this case, I could then play bishop f6 and try to target this pawn on d4. But all right, let's just get caught up with the players. Knight takes c3, queen takes c3, queen d7, queen takes. Has he played bishop
No,
f6?
Fabi's thinking.
Okay.
But we are expecting bishop f6, and then I was thinking maybe Firouzja could play rook c5 and not trade, because rook c7 looks very attractive.
It does. It does. Now, again, it's one of those wonderful You told me a moment ago in a different game you liked the light squares, the dynamic of the two bishops. Less so in this case, Nasi?
Yes, because I like white's pieces.
Well, they're all active,
Yeah,
with the
except
exception
for
of
the rook, but it's coming in as well.
This doesn't feel like full compensation, Miro.
Well, computer is not
Disagree?
very impressed.
No?
It gives white an edge, but only like in numeric value it would be 0.20, 0.30.
Even after
so
rook
not impressed. Yeah, with the pawn up. Yeah, bishop
actually-
f6 in fact is one of the stronger moves. And after rook c5 it just goes. Yeah, well, funny enough, one of the moves it plays, it actually
Encourages you
yes,
to carry
invites
out-
you to go to c7,
Right.
only to say that now kind of go rook c8, pin your rook. If you take on d7, black,
Takes
in
out
fact, is
c4.
relatively happy to take on c4.
Right.
And it is, I believe,
If I
in
play rook-
spirit of martial counterattack, right?
Yeah.
With the light square bishop, and you always, like, you never win with black, but you always speculate on, like, you go knight d5, I go to opposite colors, I make a draw, like, and this is the way I make a draw, and that's the way I make a draw. So it's very, very likely that he'll hold it. So it's characteristic for the Petrov as well, right? In the Petrov defense, it's very common. So I think Fabi's kind of fine with that.
Right. Wow. It's one of those games, I must say that for me, when I did a study of the games of Mickey Adams, Mickey Adams was one of those players that really loved the Marshall Gambit. He liked the two bishops, and he very, very often played a lot of endings of pawn down, and he never lost. It was just like, if you ever want to study a player who's a pawn down and really understands the bishops, study the games of Mickey Adams. It's just a wonderful player. As we prepare for our break, just a second, I've got something for you here. Let me see what I've got. I've got the women's candidates feature. No.
I think we're doing a promo about Hikaru.
No, that comes later. We've got April Music Series coming up. If you're anywhere in the Central West End, please do make every effort to attend this month's World Chess Hall of Fame Music Series. Concerts on Wednesday, April 17th and Thursday, April 25th. Purchase tickets at worldchesshalloffame.org. And I've got to tell you, these are sold out each and every week. So do make every effort to get your tickets early. And as we do go on break, let's meet the players. Hikaru Nakamura and the candidates for the World Championship. Have a look.
Jan Nepomniachtchi, known to the world as Nepo, will be playing in his third consecutive candidates tournament. He won the last two, the only player to achieve this in the recent history. Those candidate wins sent him to two World Championship matches. In 2021, he lost against Magnus Carlsen, and last year he faced Chinese Grandmaster Ding Liren, the match he also lost on a tiebreak. Nepo is a super grandmaster, 2 times Russian champion, and consistently one of the highest rated players in the world.
Ramesh Babu Praggnanandhaa is a great story. At only 18 years of age, he has established himself as a remarkable Indian chess grandmaster. He was only 12 years old when he achieved the grandmaster title, becoming the second youngest grandmaster at the time. He qualified for this tournament by reaching the finals of the 2023 Chess World Cup, and notably beat world champion Ding Liren at the Tata Steel event. The story gets even better when you consider that his older sister, Vaishali, is now on the same stage here in Toronto, playing in the women's candidates. Prag is definitely a player to watch.
Fabiano Caruana, at 31 years old, is one of the strongest players in the world and is currently ranked number 2 in the world. He is a 3-time US champion, winning the title for the first time in 2016. Fabi played his first candidates that same year, finishing second. In 2018, he won his second candidates tournament in Berlin, which sent him to the World Championship match against Magnus Carlsen. After 12 games and 12 draws, the match ended with a tie. However, Caruana lost to Carlsen in the tiebreakers. In 2023, Fabi has been on a tear, winning the 2023 Sinquefield Cup, the St. Louis Rapid and Blitz, as well as the 2023 Grand Chess Tour with an amazing 46 out of 52 points, setting a record for the highest point total in the tour's history. If you're cheering for an American to win, you might want to pick the fabulous Fabi.
28-year-old Nijat Abasov is a Azerbaijani chess grandmaster. He became a grandmaster at the age of 15 and became a top 100 chess player in 2019. Nijat has played and defeated some of the best, finishing 4th in the 2023 World Cup to earn an invitation to the 2024 candidates. He will be considered a long shot for this tournament, but has surprised the competition by even qualifying to the candidates.
Vidit Gujrathi, age 29, will be appearing in the candidates for the first time. Joining a rising number of Indian super grandmasters, Vidit has contributed to Indian success in the Olympiad as part of the national team. One path to the candidates is to do well in the FIDE Grand Swiss, a tournament that Vidit won, that has brought him to Toronto to face the best in the world. He joins his fellow Indians, Pragg and Gukesh, in this edition of the candidates.
Hikaru Nakamura is a 5-time US champion. Remarkably, at the age of 36, Hikaru will be the oldest player in the candidates field. Known as much for his social media presence as his chess prowess, Hikaru has turned his attention back to the upcoming World Championship. His domination in the faster time controls may serve him well if the candidates comes down to the tiebreaks. He was the 2023 American Cup winner and has been rated as high as number 2 in the world as recently as last year. Millions of Nakamura fans will be cheering for Naka in this year's candidates.
At 20 years old, the Frenchman Alireza Firouzja has shown amazing talent, becoming a grandmaster at the age of 14, and in 2022, Ali achieved number 2 world's rating with a 28.04. He's been to the candidates before. At the age of 18, he qualified for the 2022 candidates, the youngest participant to achieve this feat. His performance in winning the 2022 Sinquefield Cup and ultimately the Grand Chess Tour was proof of his rightful place among the very best.
Another one of the Indian powerhouse chess players in this tournament, 17-year-old Domaraju Gukesh, known as Gukesh, is the youngest participant in the Toronto candidates. He started early, earning the title of Grandmaster at age 12 years, 7 months and 17 days. Gukesh proved he could play with the best, defeating Magnus Carlsen in 2022 at the prestigious WR Masters tournament and tying for first in 2023 at the same tournament. Gukesh is the youngest player to surpass a rating of 2750, dethroning his boyhood idol, Viswanathan Anand, as India's top-ranked player. Gukesh, part of the Indian tour de force at this year's candidates.
The stages are set, the players are primed. The best of the best are ready to face off in the 2024 Grand Chess Tour. The top players in the world prepare to battle across 4 countries over a $1.5 million prize fund. Everything starts in Warsaw, Poland for the Superbet Poland Rapid and Blitz. Then off to Bucharest, Romania for the Superbet Romania Classic. The tour kicks back into high gear in Zagreb, Croatia for the Super United Croatia Rapid and Blitz, with the tour finishing with back-to-back events in the chess capital of America, the St. Louis Rapid and Blitz, and the coveted Sinquefield Cup. 9 players will go in, but only one can be crowned champion. Who is prepared to make history? Get ready for the return of the Grand Chess Tour.
The St. Louis Chess Club is the premier chess facility in the United States. We bring the educational benefits of chess to thousands of students across the St. Louis area. We also promote chess at the highest levels, hosting all levels of the U.S. championships as well as high-profile tournaments that attract the world's best players. Become a member and enjoy perks such as free classes and lectures, weekly tournaments, and so much more. Visit stlouischessclub.org to claim your membership today. The St. Louis Chess Club Scholastic Program brings the educational value of chess to kids in schools across the St. Louis area. Active in over 100 schools throughout the St. Louis City and County, the St. Louis Chess Club has been able to reach over 85,000 students in both in-school and after-school programs. We view chess as a valuable educational tool. Learn more about our scholastic programming by visiting stlouischessclub.org/education. In the world of collegiate chess, there is no team rising quite like the one at the University of Missouri. The team has brought home title after title, including the 2024 Pan American Intercollegiate Championship, the first time ever in school history. Guided by their head coach, Christian Karilla, there is no stopping the Tigers. Respect, responsibility, discovery, excellence. University of Missouri.
Welcome back, everyone. Let's take a look at our current standings.
Okay, let's do it. We've got 2 results in each section.
Right, the leaders are still playing Caruana, Nepo, Gukesh, and Vidit, but we had 1 result. Nakamura drew against Abasov.
Early, quick draw, I want to say. But boy, in the other games, exciting things are still going on in the game between Alireza and and in the ladies' standings. I apologize.
In the ladies' standing, we also have 1 result. Tan drew Koneru, and she remains in the lead with 2.5 points, but closely following is Aleksandra Goryachkina with 1.5.
Who's still at play. In the open section, I wanted to draw our attention to the game between Alireza and Fabi. This is the game where White is a pawn up, but the compensations of the 2 bishops, which we've been discussing in a number of cases, usually is good enough. And where did we leave it? We left it right here. We had been looking at bishop f6 and rook c5. Fabi played a much more direct move. I attack your queen. Queen went to b5. There was a queen trade and bishop to e4. Now, from Alireza's point of view, I mean, once you get to play a7, a6, rook c2, it starts to become a 3-result game. He decided to shut it down with the move d5, a6, rook takes b7, bishop takes d5, and we've caught up with the players here in this one. And Miro, what has caught your attention? The same game.
No, I was just following to explain why exactly it was a draw, but it was self-evident. The most exciting, perhaps, is a game between 2 Indian players, Vidit and Pragg. Right. I mean, let's not forget it was a very, very original opening, the one that you, Yasser, discussed, right? And we discussed over there, knight f5 and so on. And at some point, we believed black had at least even chances. And this is what we have now. And once again, I have to myself check what time do they have left. 12 minutes for Vidit, almost half an hour for Pragg still. Okay, computer screams black is totally, well, not totally winning, but huge, huge advantage, more than a pawn, with a move queen to c6. Yeah, the queen is attacked, it has to go. It's a bit surprising to leave the b5 pawn, right? And yeah, well, queen c6 was the computer move. Of course, the human move would be queen to b5, and it was played. But yeah, I don't know, it was dropping some of the advantage, but not anymore. Knight c4, still computer likes black. Let me see. Yeah, bishop to c3, something.
Very human.
Not that easy to comprehend what's going on, to be honest. Like, it's nice to look at those numbers that I have on the screen and pretend like I understand something.
Right.
In reality, if I'm looking at this position, it's a mess. It's a mess. You feel that with the light square bishop, this is a very important piece, of course. Black has the attack potential over the diagonal. If queens are coming off, all of a sudden it's the same very important piece which will win you the b3 pawn and hence the game. So I think most of black's advantage is thanks to this bishop. And if we do a little head count, black is also a pawn up, which matters.
Absolutely. So most consequent seems bishop c3. What happens after, let's say, just
bishop c3?
Yeah.
And again, I believe if black kind of stabilizes, and by stabilizes I mean wins this guy,
right,
it's game over. Right?
More or less, yeah.
But there is bishop d4 and still some tricks. If I follow the first line of the engine, kind of not paying attention how complex it is and so on, rook h7, bishop to c3, b c3.
Queen takes g6.
Yeah, queen g6, rook h e7. It's a huge advantage, but instead, and especially like towards the time trouble, like knight d6 is very annoying. It turns out. So you can run into this, and then queen to g6.
Now, queen
and then
takes
if you
c6.
take on e7, it's a check, and the d5 bishop. And again, if you are a computer, the only move to keep advantage for black would be bishop takes g2. But let's be real, this is not what's happening in this game.
Wow.
So bishop g2, and the point of it being that, yeah, if king takes, now you take with this rook and probably have some threats on the e-file. Still too complex, I would say. As of now, we are still here. White is thinking. Vidit's got 11 minutes. And a reminder that there is no increment in the open tournament, right? So it's 11 minutes for 15 moves. Yeah, to make it to the time control. He just played knight c4. I suggest let's visit Fabi. Let's visit Fabi again, because if they've played a few more moves, there is a chance it will just peter out to a draw.
You think
No, it seems nothing. Rook to d7 was played by Alireza.
After bishop takes d5.
Yeah, so bishop d5, rook
We
to
could possibly
d7.
see three-move repetition with bishop e6, rook b7, or after bishop e6, Firouzja could go rook a7, possibly?
Maybe to
go
d2 and just to keep, you know, I understand it's very hard to win with like this 2 pawns against 1 with black having 2 bishops, but maybe. Yeah, well, Humpy says rook to d2, in fact.
Some advantage, no?
Yes,
thanks
tiny advantage. It's one of those that you're always better, you never win. You know.
Always better. But
No, but seriously, there's a lot of games like this, right? I mean, potentially, let's say all the minor pieces getting exchanged, and you're up this pawn on the queen side, and it's 3 versus 3. And with 4 rooks on the board, with 1 set of rooks on the board, it's a draw, right?
Right.
So that's what possibly is the development of this
And
one.
we do have rook a7.
No, he dragged the bishop to e6 and then went to a7. And then, well, according to the machine, bishop f6, I guess, pretty much makes a draw. As the line goes bishop to e5, trade bishops, take the a2 pawn, and it looks more and more like a, like a scenario I was describing, to be honest. Yeah, like rook takes a2, rook takes e5, rook takes a6. White wins the pawn, but black gives a check, goes whatever g6 or h5, just is not getting checkmated on the last rank, and with 2 rooks being active, it's good enough for a draw.
And I wanted to go back to Gukesh Nepo game, because before the break, Gukesh had a significant advantage. But now it looks like everything kind of fizzled out and looks very equal.
Well, I really had a problem, because right here I really thought that Gukesh was not only playing an accurate game, but really kind of a master class, if you will. To my eyes, the 2 bishops, the spatial advantage, more active rook. I was really expecting Gukesh to massage the position. B3, A4, play it carefully, patiently, make incremental progress. And I was really stunned by the move Rook D1, trading rooks. So the way I think is that your rook's on an open file. My rook's on an open file. But who's got the better deal? To my way of thinking, I control, that is to say, white controls the business squares. D1, D2, D3. In other words, I've neutralized your rook. Your rook isn't offending me. On the other hand, this rook has the C5 square. There are ideas that maybe one day I can play bishop takes A6. So I'm thinking that my rook is marginally better. And so for me, the move Rook D1 was a surprise, and maybe that made life a little easier.
I'm going to guess Gukesh tried to simplify everything because he was in time trouble.
Ah, that I didn't pay attention to. In fact, what was his time at that moment that he was simplifying? Was it significant?
He had around 5 minutes for about 10 moves left, something like that. I'm actually a little bit surprised because the clock's showing 31 minutes as if he already gained time, but they have not reached the move 40 yet. So I'm not sure
what's going on.
Was he in a time trouble though? Yeah. The open section has like longer time control. Could it be that? Now I'm confused.
Right?
Now I'm confused. I'm on board with Yasser on this one. Like playing Rook D1 feels
strange, right?
You know, too straightforward, I would say. And once again, I mean, if you have computer helping you, you could say that A4 is also a move.
A4?
A4 immediately. The reason for that being that if black takes and black has to take,
right,
then you go bishop C4 all of a sudden. And with rooks being on the board, this threat of, you know, F5 sometime is annoying.
Right.
So this is uncomfortable. And you always have Rook to A1, win the pawn back.
Nice.
And not only that, like, okay, let's pretend we don't have an engine. So my understanding is that you need some piece than just two bishops.
Right.
And the reason for that is that, okay, imagine rooks disappeared. That's what happened in the game, right? So your dark square bishop has no opposing bishop. So whenever the knight is on a dark square, you can disturb it with the bishop. When it's on a light square, you have the bishop to disturb it, and he has the bishop to protect. So whenever you have one more piece to chase this knight away, a knight doesn't have kind of a nice square to be put into. So you can gain more and more space and kind of chase your opponent's pieces further. So, well, unless you trade the rooks and penetrate with the king all the way to C5, that's another story, right?
Right. Good luck.
Right. So Rook D1. Of course, it's easy to criticize that when we know how the game developed, right? And
I didn't see A4 and bishop C4. I just like the idea of keeping the pieces. As it turns out, the current situation, the knight on C6 is like an ideally placed. I mean, it's keeping white's king at bay.
There was one funny moment here. So that after AB5, Gukesh played F5, and this is how the game developed. And so bishop E2 targeting the B5 pawn, and one would expect like bishop A6, but that's so awkward. The bishop's on A6, and the funny reaction is that black always goes knight A5.
Exactly.
So you have to guard this guy, and then I'll go back. Right. If you go B4, then of course knight C4, and this knight will never going to move from C4
ever. Right.
Yeah. So F5, king to G7 takes, and bishop to G4. I think that's they developed even further. Yeah.
Draw.
Magic. It's a draw.
Wow. A big clash between two of our tournament co-leaders ended up with, well, I'm going to say that Jan is going to be very pleased with the outcome of the game, not necessarily how he got here, because I really do feel that Gukesh, sometimes in these tournaments you let a half point slip away here and there, and the next thing you know you're in third instead of being tied for first. That was a little bit of a miss, but you have updates on the game of Vidit.
Actually, if you don't mind, there's a lot going on in the game. Muzychuk against Lagno.
Let's switch over to the ladies.
On move 39, and
there's
mutual mistakes happening.
Okay.
Engine keeps saying, White is winning, but you have to make very precise moves. She
Miro,
did find Rook D1.
yeah, he brought us, pointed out to our attention that after the Queen C8 check, King H7, Anna had a really nice move here to pursue a checkmating attack with Rook D1, which she found. And how did it go after that, Nasi? E4?
We have a lot of more moves, so White is completely winning here, but it's not simple.
Well, the Black King is going to go for a walk, right? Queen check and blow the Black King up the board. Rook takes A5, check here.
So Queen G4 was a mistake because here Black can defend with Queen G5, which
Right.
Black didn't do, because nothing is clear in this position.
But we were expecting Queen
E8
E8 check,
right.
and then the king has to walk the plank. But Queen G4, she went back. Check, she went back.
They repeated this twice to reach move 40. And now
Okay.
Anna will have time to figure out if there's a win.
Okay, and is there a win after,
Unless
say,
they
Rook
already
G8?
did 3-move repetition.
No. I'm just checking. Yeah. So, well, Anna got lucky. Well, it's still up to her to find the winning sequence with Queen E8, right? But both with Queen D7, King G6, and Queen G4, King back to F7, we had both of those positions twice. So it is not threefold repetition.
Okay.
So Queen D7 reaches move 40. Black has, well, the only legal move, which is King G6. Both players will get half an hour added to their clock. And here, yeah, the only winning move is to go Queen E8. Let's see if it's easy to find. Yeah, sometimes computer would say it's a win, but it means it's a, like, you know, some very fine move at the end of a 5-6 moves long line. So here, for instance, okay, King F5, Queen H5, I'm not very happy with. I can believe that this is wrong, yeah? So if I, in check after Queen E8, I'm trying King G5, not to give any possibilities here. Then you have to go Queen to F7, otherwise you lose the advantage.
So check on A1, check on E5.
Yeah, so these checks apparently do not help much, even though it's not evident to a human eye, right? A check, G3.
F5.
And
you just
this
go
is
after
it. Yeah, this is
it. Your G5, yeah.
G6 and
Rook G8, I would have guessed.
H4.
oh, pretty much everything wins. Yeah, like Queen D7 is the strongest, but you don't have
Mate in
to.
10.
Queen D7,
Queen
H5,
D2.
H4 checkmate. Let's finish it this way. Anyway, so the crucial moment is,
Right
Lagno
now.
is going to play King G8 to start all this sequence with Queen E8, because alternatives, I'd say this doesn't really help. You would think Rook G8, G7's attacked, right? But then Black gives a check. Remember, we were going with this sequence with this couple of checks here, and then F5, and the Queen on E5 protects E8, protects G7.
And you have King H7.
Absolutely equal, it says. Yep.
We have breaking news as Vaishali has won her game. That was crazy. We didn't understand anything that was going on in that game. It was a bishop G5 check, and here are our live standings with that result.
Right, Vaishali recovered from yesterday, first game's loss, I believe. So updated the current standings. Zhongyi with 2.5, Goryachkina 1.5, but she's still playing. Koneru 1.5, and Vaishali also joined with 1.5, but those games are finished.
So Vaishali and Prague, brother and sister, both lost yesterday. It would be kind of remarkable if they were both to bounce back in this round 3, as Prague has an upper hand against his countryman Vidit. In this game between Anna and Katja, for me, these two players are so, well, legendary. This would be a big result if Anna could bounce back with a win after her loss yesterday. Tell us about the game of Prague, Miro.
Well. Yeah. Remember, we looked at this one and we said some lines are beyond human comprehension. And up to the point, both players were finding the right way. So knight to c4, bishop c3, bishop d4. And remember, there was this rook h7 move. And rook h to g8, which is very natural. You want to kind of move the rook away so it's not taken, and you want to guard the g6 pawn.
Right.
Happens to be not the best.
Okay.
The engine says now white can equalize, capturing on c3. That's what it's done. But the next move is hilarious. I don't know. Well, it has to have tactical justification. The move that equalizes is knight to a3.
No way.
I'm sorry, but you do not look at such moves.
Wow.
That's what computer has to say. Yeah, knight a3 equal, all the rest black is much better. Let's try to figure out what it means. Okay, the queen's attacked, the bishop's attacked, so we hint at black queen being overloaded, right? Queen to b7, very logical. Rook to d4, it says.
Nice idea of rook
To d4, some tricks
but can
here.
black play c5 or
and
a5?
if c5, then we go rook d3.
Give me the pawn.
Yeah, and
You weaken
after
d6.
having the knight on a3
yes.
just does not make much sense.
Yeah, like the knight. Why you have to? Yeah, that's not easy. Look.
But we'll
So
see
this
if
position.
Vidit finds it.
Why do you need to go knight a3? Right? You don't feel the urge to go knight a3 in this position, if anything. Let's see if he finds it. Yeah, that would be a chance. It would be a chance for Vidit to come back and.
So for
In this
me,
position, queen d4 looks logical, trying
Yeah,
to
you-
take the
you-
Yeah,
c3
queen
pawn.
d4,
you
but then.
double attack the bishop on d5.
Yeah,
in
so
front
it's
of
not
the queen.
only white has to be kind of super inventive to equalize, but say after queen d4, which I would agree is kind of the
Visually?
move visually very pleasing. This is the move. Again, don't ask me why, but bishop to a8, bishop a8.
We do have
And-
moves on the board. Vidit played queen d4,
Yep,
and Pragg played bishop b7.
queen d4, bishop b7, and bishop b7. So bishop a8, again, I don't know why, but bishop a8 was, well, quite a bit better compared to, so let's find out. Queen takes, and then you take on e7, but you could have done this with bishop on b7?
Maybe at some point there's knight a5 threatening the trade.
Yeah, could be. Like
Possibly.
you have, say, queen on c6, bishop on b7, and he guards this and goes knight to a5. Still,
And Vidit has 4 minutes left to make next 10 moves.
that's
And
a,
again,
you know,
and that's a big
Whoa.
time trouble issue for me, at least. Without that 30-second increments, it's very easy to panic.
Absolutely. So that's perhaps the first time in our tournament. And yeah, we do remember Pragg lost on time yesterday, but
Against
his
Gukesh
position was
was terrible.
completely lost.
Right.
And here, even though black is better, but still, the game is on, position is unclear, and one of the players has, well, he's under, under the threat of losing on time.
Under duress.
So it's 4 minutes and 10 more moves to play.
Okay, queen takes c3.
Queen takes
Let's-
c3.
Let's talk practically about the position for just a moment. Rook takes e7.
Yeah, that's
which
what you
was
want to
just
do.
played,
Right, okay.
Which was just played. Rook takes
rook
e7.
takes e7.
Now, do we want to challenge the well, asked and answered very, very quickly, knight a5, which might
So
have been...
that's why
Yeah,
bishop on
that-
a8 was
that's
better.
why the bishop on a8 was good. And can I just move the bishop to a8 back?
Well, that was my question, is like, why is the
But we
knight on
lost the
a5 so
tempo.
good?
And then, and
So what?
then it's rook
knight
d4.
on a5 is like misplaced.
And then it's rook d4.
Rook d4. Now,
Then it's rook d4.
Now we have a threat, a very, very concrete threat. Rook b4 is the threat now.
And yeah, it goes, it never stops. It's when computer starts kind of, teaching you how to play tactical chess, it never stops. Like rook e4, you would have think, yeah, but I guard the fourth. And computer says, not really, because there is more tempi, like rook to c1, and then I'm threatening c7. And yeah, we just have to agree it is equal. Knight a5 is on the board.
Yep.
So being short on time does not necessarily mean he will not find all those resources. He's done a good job of going knight a5. According to the machine, you have to accept the exchange on b7,
The trade.
the trade. G5's the move, rook to e5's the move. So we are switching with black. We are switching from we are completely winning. Not only we are a pawn up, but we have the attack. We will play perhaps some endgame with the, pawn up.
Right.
But the king, our king on b8, may be a bit more vulnerable than white's king.
So that was the point, bishop b7, as opposed to bishop a8. And again, 16 minutes for Prague, 4 minutes for Vidit. The
G5
preparation
looks really good.
Yeah, g5. But for me, the preparation for Prague, he took a huge risk. In my view, it really paid off. If I was Prague's trainer second, and the team had come and said, "Let's play f5," I was going, "What's wrong with you guys?" Because kind of like Hikaru in his interview, Hikaru said it very well. I lost a game. If I take too many risks with black, I lose the game, and then I'm on vacation for the next week because I'm out of the tournament. Prague loses this game out of the opening. End of tournament. So we took a huge risk. It's a gamble that's currently paying off 4 minutes, and we're expecting
paid off
g5.
big time, because if he plays g5 in 4 minutes, even though after knight b7, maybe white's not in so much danger anymore, it's still
There's a king.
We can't force queen trade, right, after queen b7. So
No.
as long as queens are still on the board and there's possibly an open g-file.
Yes. Let's just jump from this game because we've got time pressures everywhere. Let's just jump over to the Fabi game for a quick sec. This is Alireza.
Yeah, I don't know if we've mentioned that, but there is a result, right? Nepo's game is officially over. It is a draw. We've got the result. So
Yes.
we have only
showed
2
that.
games running.
Right.
And Alireza with Fabi. So Fabi found his own way. After, Yasser, let's take a look at your board, because that's
When
not
we
too
left
much
it,
tactic here.
Yeah, bishop e6, rook a7. That was the last move. We were actually contemplating bishop f6. And in case of bishop e5, we were trading and playing bishop a2. We were getting into a 4-rook ending. That was not what happened. Fabi played the move rook a8 instead, hunting down and trading off the active rook. And he said, okay, I've been left with the 2 bishops. a3, h6, rook e1, rook d8, bishop e5, rook d5, bishop c5. And after king h7, we just caught up with the players. Are the clocks a factor in this one, Nazi?
Possibly. So they still have 7 moves until move 40.
7
Fabiano
moves to move 40.
has 7 minutes and Firouzja 11. The position is pretty simple, so I don't think Fab is really in time trouble.
Any kind of...
Can white keep the tension somehow?
Yeah, it's exactly how... exactly what I was asking myself too. The question is how to do it. If I ever get bishops of opposite color, I mean, if I ever allow this knight to be traded for the dark square bishop, I think the chances of a draw are too overwhelming. The problem, as I see it, is like the knight isn't in the right square, but I'm not really sure what the right square is. I'd love to have my knight on f4, frankly.
Black pieces are just really well placed.
They
so.
are. They are. Miro, I mean, if you tell me the engine says 000s, I'm not going to believe
Not
it
far
so
off,
much, but
not
so
far off. 0, 16, 0, 11 in different lines. And, if we recall, like, various martial attack endgames, right?
Yeah.
So
Very typical.
very often, white is a pawn up, but black manages to make a draw after draw after draw, and then all of a sudden you are no longer that optimistic about this extra pawn.
Exactly.
So the computer doesn't really show
we're talking
way
about
to-
this big updates in Vidit's game now. It looks completely lost. I think he has blundered
What?
something.
Really? Oh my.
We do have g5 on the board.
Uh-oh.
Time trouble is
happened?
really affecting these players.
G5,
no
H5.
extra 30 seconds making all the difference.
Well, I tell you, as Maurice Ashley loved to say, time trouble makes fools of us all. When we left it, we'd seen the move knight a5. We thought rook e5 was a completely legit move along with g5. We expected take that bishop.
So he didn't take on b7, which is surprising, to be honest.
Shocking is closer to it. I mean, this knight on a5, if you don't take the bishop, what is the knight on a5 doing? He played b4, g5,
I don't like
h5, g4, and now I'm starting to get scared with white because Rook takes h5, g3, and what the heck?
all black.
G3 was played, right?
g3.
I
G3.
think this is going to be over soon.
G3 is very strong.
Wow.
So
Okay,
after
help
rook
me.
e5, does black have this in between move g takes f?
Certainly, that the intermezzo takes on, and this fellow is falling again. But if I take, are you taking on h5 or are you playing rook g?
It takes on G3, runs into queen b6.
Oh, and then I take on h5 with a checkmate.
No, you don't take anything. Yes, just give queen b6 check without taking on G3.
No, why did you take rook g3?
Yeah.
Yeah, immediately queen b6.
Just queen b6 check.
Check, and that
And
was
wins on the spot.
rook takes h5. Sorry, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
King
No,
h2.
rook e5 is the line. Yeah.
Whoa, so g3.
Vidit has made a move. He played knight takes b7 after g3.
Whoa. So we do have that intermezzo. G takes f2
I
check.
think even queen b7 is looking good, threatening g takes f on the next move.
The problem here is everything looks good. G takes, king takes, queen takes b7, threatening g2. That looks great. White's king is suddenly extremely vulnerable. What you were just about to say, queen takes b7 too, with a crushing threat.
So we
here.
can't play f3. There's queen b6 check again.
Ouch.
With mate.
And that is really the same issues. Ouch. Well, for Vidit, one day
Completely winning.
the teacher, the next day the student.
Absolutely.
Knight takes b7.
Knight takes
what
b7
is the
loses
most
in many ways.
convincing? Yeah,
in many
what's the most
ways.
convincing one?
So the most convincing, again, according to machine, I'm not sure. Queen b7 is just as convincing, but machine prefers this and then rook to g5. So keep more pieces on the board because this king is weak, right?
Exactly.
And knight on b7 is not threatening. You're not in a hurry to take it. So g3, and then it takes on b7,
Right.
and it's what? It's a pawn up. It's anytime soon the second pawn.
Right.
Black can
H5
take
or
on h5.
G3.
Yes, and it's also this
It's
king will
supposed to.
not survive for long.
Wow.
Yep.
A huge turnaround for Prague in this game.
What
Wow.
a recovery after yesterday's loss to come back, play f5. It seemed like he was playing for a win from the start with the black pieces.
That's exactly what it seems like. He sure did. And again, just in this moment, Prague taking his time as he's got these two fabulous opportunity. Take on f2 with check, taking on b7. In these types of situations where you know you have really excellent choices, what do? Do you try to use all your time, Nazi, or do you just pick something?
I would, but Prague calculates much faster than I do. So
He
he
took-
already took on f2 and on
no
b7.
rook f5 check. No rook f5 check. Not that I'm happy about rook takes e5 one single bit, but rook takes e5, queen takes check. Ooh,
It has to be
I am not surviving this very long, am I?
over.
King e1. No. No, this is over. This is terrible, terrible. What else do you have for us, Miro?
Well, it's not that many games left,
No, there
and soon
isn't.
there will be even less because Alireza Firouzja and Fabiano Caruana repeating moves. Let me figure out if it was already the threefold repetition.
Even.
Anyway, it seems like Firouzja has simply given up. So in this position, he went rook to e5, and after this check, he goes back. And after rook d5, he once again goes rook to e5, and he goes back, and I think rook d5 is a threefold.
A threefold repetition.
And even if not, to be honest, I think Fabi is just comfortable holding this one, and maybe Firouzja will give up in a way, kind of accept the draw.
I see. And again, where that leaves us this remaining game of Vidit and Prague. Vidit came
Played
into this
queen
round
f3.
with being tied for first.
And we do have
Queen
a
f3.
result in Fabi's game.
A
It
draw.
ended in a draw.
It is a draw. Queen f3, a much better attempt than my rook takes e5. Queen f3.
Queen b6 check. I'm definitely not trading queens, although I think even the endgame is winning, but
I'm sorry to say you're probably right. King F1. And we're expecting Vidit to lose this game, but with those 3 draws, where are our current standings?
Currently, there are 3 co-leaders, Fabiano, Nepomniachtchi, and Gukesh with 2 points.
If Vidit was to win, of course, he would have 2.5, but we suspect that Prague is going to keep his countrymen at 1.5, and Prague will have 4. So it'll be one of those situations where we'll have 3 tournament co-leaders and 5 players tied for
No, not
Fourth?
really.
Not really.
Not
Only
really.
2 players will be tied for the 4th place.
Yeah,
It
there'll
will
be 2
Vidit
people
and
on
Prague.
50%. Vidit and
Prague,
Prague.
after he wins.
what?
That's how we players count points. Like if you, Yasser, ask me after round 9, how many points do you have? I won't be able to answer. But I could tell you +3, for
Right,
instance.
right.
And that would mean I won 3 more games that I've lost.
Correct.
Right? And this is how very often
50%.
we count. Yeah, 50% means I
Right.
either made all draws or
Yeah.
won as many as lost.
Right. Well,
lost
no,
as many as
I'm
lost.
saying if Vidit were to lose, they'd all be at 50%.
Absolutely.
That's exactly. We're on the same page. Okay, even. And let's jump to Toronto as Anastasia caught up with Fabi right after his game. Over to you,
Repeated was
Toronto.
quite soon after.
Yeah, exactly. And you mentioned that you are a little bit worried about the time. So this time control, how difficult it is now after 3 rounds? Because you cannot have a really special prep for this, right?
Yeah, well, you can try to play training games, but nobody wants to play like 4-hour training
Exactly,
games, right?
yes, yes.
So yeah, the important thing is not to get like super low on time, like Alireza got yesterday against Jan,
Yeah.
where you're down to seconds in complicated position. You have no chance to figure it out. But it's hard to avoid time trouble completely. I mean, it wasn't like I was in time trouble, but you're always feeling like you're a little bit low on time.
This
and
pressure, yes,
yeah,
it's coming. Yes.
it's always in the back of your mind, unless you have like an hour on the clock, then you always feel it a bit that you might get into time trouble.
Yeah. Yesterday you managed to win the game. So what is the spirit of the team? How do you feel? What did you do yesterday?
Oh, I mean, we're happy, of course, with the win. I'm happy to win. I mean, you can't get better than a win,
Exactly.
but it doesn't really mean so much for the tournament yet. I mean, it's still early, very early days, and everything's to play for. So whether you win or draw or even lose, unfortunately, it can happen. Still, it's not like time yet to celebrate or despair.
And that's for sure. Yes, all the best of luck for the next rounds. And we go back to Yasser, Miro, and Nazi.
Thank you, Anastasia. As we have 1 game remaining in each of our sections, and again, this game that Prague has played has been really a
Really
fantastic
exciting
game.
from start to finish.
Truly, truly, and we're expecting the finishing touches here after this move, Queen F3. There's a choice. You can go into an endgame 2 pawns up, or Nasi, what was your feeling is don't trade queens. He
Right.
played rook g5.
It goes into the end game with 2 extra pawns, I believe.
Yes, well, eventually. But I liked your move, queen b6 check, keeping the queens on the board. Again, in the game, he has already chosen the move rook g5. Miro, jump in. Prague is winning.
Yeah, honestly,
which was the engine's approved
not
line?
much to analyze. Queen g5, queen b6 check is good. Rook e to g5 is the second best.
Second best,
Second
that's all I
best.
wanted,
And
yeah.
in terms of numbers, both leave black with +5. Oh, but yeah, so
+5.
almost a rook.
Also,
Yeah,
point
almost
out-
a rook.
Wow.
Vidit just made a move with 9 seconds left on the clock, and he still has 3 moves to go.
King takes b7.
But I think
So
we're
he
gonna see
traded, he went
resignation soon.
g4, and now we just take on g4. And
Which has happened.
is it.
And
Rook
did he
e6
play
is on
all
the
of his
board.
moves with a few
Yes.
seconds? He has. He's
Yes.
made his time control.
Right.
Wow.
But his position is absolutely losing, so
A disaster, for sure.
black has a choice. Which pawn do you pick up first, H pawn or B pawn?
Right. Well,
I don't see any counterplay for white, so this game will be over soon.
so he makes the time control, but he doesn't save the position. That's the problem. Rook e6. In this exact moment, the problem is I'm tempted. I'm tempted by rook takes g4, but I also like this check. This check,
Rook f4 or rook g2?
rook g, Yeah, pardon me, rook g2. Excuse me. I'm tempted by both.
I also like rook f4, forcing the king to go to the e file.
Also, rook f4 check is another very nice one. Sometimes it's tough when you have all of these tempting moves.
The position is 2 winning.
It's 2 winning. Just to make sure that everybody's on the same page as us, Vidit did make the time control. With his move, he has gotten the extra 30 minutes, pardon me. Prague has not made the time control.
Right,
Absolutely.
but he still has 5 minutes on the clock.
He could still lose the game on time by failing to remember the time control. Also,
Well,
it's
that
up to
would
him.
be a miracle for Vidit.
I think it was at the American Cup. Somebody flagged out. They just forgot about the clock. Was it Ray Robson? I'm not sure. Somebody.
Ray or Linear? I think.
Linear. Somebody just forgot completely about the clock. 4 minutes, 30 seconds. 1 game remaining. The open section, we think Vidit is lost. How about in the ladies, Miro? 1 game remaining there.
Let's see.
What's
1
happened?
game remaining there, and we were
Here.
Yeah, we were here, and King G6 happened, and
Queen
after
E8 check is the winning line.
right, Queen E8 was the winning move. Anna spent 17 minutes, I think, out of Muzychuk against Lagno, right? And
yes,
yeah, here move 40, and yeah, so that's the moment. Move 40, she got half an hour added to her clock.
Yes, she did.
As the minimum, she had half an hour, and after she played the move, 13 minutes were left, and the move wasn't Queen E8. So Rook G8.
Oh,
Rook
she
G8,
missed
giving
it.
away the win because Lagno pretty much blitzed out a check, and a 5, and as we
She's protected G7.
yeah, as we know, this is
Huge
well.
miss.
You can still play this one. It's not the end. It's not kind of a forced draw, but there is no advantage for white.
Oh.
I don't know what to try here. Like Compy says, for instance, you can go Rook C8 and you can kind of still play it after Rook C6. But
Exactly.
it's not that the C2 pawn is any dangerous, right?
No. Oh, this is a
Yep,
huge
that's
miss.
a big miss.
A huge miss for Anna's fans. She will not be happy at the end of this game. And for Kacha,
I think it'll be better if she doesn't check this game with the digit.
But that's the thing, you know, as a competitor, the first thing you want to know after the game is, did I miss something, right?
Yes, but you learn from experience that usually answer is yes, and you don't want to check it.
You don't want to know what it is. But you have that feeling during the game. This is and you gave up a draw, and you had that feeling like I let it go, and then you run out and say, okay, you're the first person you recognize. Where was my win? But once again, to update our current standings, let's start with the Open and just see where we stand. We do have 3 draws.
Right, only 1 game remaining. So far we have 3 co-leaders, Caruana, Nepomniachtchi, and Gukesh. I guess no one is going to catch them because Vidit is about to lose his game.
Exactly.
And Prague's going to catch Vidit and be at 50%.
Exactly. And in the ladies, the live standings with 1 game remaining.
We have Tan in the sole lead with 2.5, Goryachkina in clear second with 2 points, and Koneru and Vaishali sharing third with 1.5.
The game that Nurgyo lost, to my mind, Miro, did we get that right? I mean, because that pawn was on h4 and it was supposed to be protecting the square g5. There was no bad transmission errors.
Again, we'll try to bring it up. Yeah, that's a mystery, right? So
Right.
This is the game we were talking about. It's Vaishali against Salimova, the game that has already finished. So maybe 1 move earlier, because h6, white did play bishop d3, so that's very typical for this specific line of the Petrov. One of the possible plans is to put the knight on g5. If it gets attacked with h6, you go h4, and you never leave, pretty much, right?
Right.
You never leave. Well, she left the very next move, but not back, but rather to f7. And that was analyzed on the show, that, check, king f8, queen d3, looks very scary, but black had a defense in the form of Bishop f6, once again, let's just... Bishop to e6, not to get checkmated. Bishop takes, rook takes, and it turns out white doesn't have much, so queen f5 is what you rely on.
But this is an easy move to miss.
Knight takes f2, or...
Knight takes f2.
Yeah, knight takes f2, because, yeah, like if you go queen e7, for instance,
You
white
think
is
you're
just
busted.
a pawn up,
Yeah.
king is bad, yeah, white would be completely winning.
Right.
However, and this, however, I'm kind of arguing with, perhaps with Yasser, but also with myself, because we found a justification why you wouldn't want to go here, but what makes you believe that bishop g5 is a better move? Probably panic. And I've done it myself many, many
Sure, we
times,
all
and
have.
I believe like a lot of players would agree with me. You sometimes, under the time pressure, in a complex position, you have, I don't know, resources, time, energy to calculate one line, and you desperately want to make it work. And when it doesn't, you understand, I have to play something else. And this something else very often is the stupidest move ever. So bishop g5 check. Then hg5, yeah, would be just game over. King b1. Black gets a chance to correct herself and just go bishop f6, which we, by that time, we already know holds.
Right.
But instead, knight to e5 played, and once again, feels like out of desperation, because after bishop e5, black does play bishop f6.
Now.
Which is too late, right? To just kind of knight, having a knight less.
Right.
Yeah. And then, yeah, white was winning many ways. This looks like a very, very convincing way. Take here, take on d7, and she had no trouble whatsoever converting this one. It's what, 3 pawns, but b7's gonna fall, and yeah, this was it.
Very nice.
And we do have a move. Pragg made the time control. He did not flag.
Very, very good.
He played rook h4.
Rook h4. Okay, so what's his idea? Now, see, if I'm going to capture on h6, you attack my pawn, I'll defend
rook
the pawn.
g5.
Just simply rook g5. So
and then
you're
we'll
expecting...
play 3 versus 1.
Yeah.
So after rook g5, there is no tactical way to... Well, maybe... Is there rook h7? Nope.
Nope.
It still doesn't work.
You're about to correct yourself when you saw rook h7 and rook takes d6, but you saw rook takes h5 as well. And yeah, you're going to be 2 pawns up, and the king's going to be cut off as well. That's makes it very, very simple. And again, for Vidit, I mean, emotionally a bit of a roller coaster ride. You win a great game. You beat Hikaru. And as we were coming into studio, we were talking about the fact that Hikaru, yesterday was his first classical chess game lost since the previous candidates. He had gone literally 2 years unscathed, and a very, I want to say, untypical loss for Hikaru, because again, we talk about his tenacity, and it's sort of like he went down in flames. He had a bad position and he couldn't save it at a certain moment. Miro, this is for Pragg, an extraordinary recovery.
Yeah, and which makes it, even more spectacular that he, unlike Hikaru, right? So today, Hikaru in his interview said, I could have taken a gamble, do something extraordinary, I might have won, I might have lost. So Hikaru, as the wise guy, he has his strategy.
Experience,
right, he thought, well, let's kind of make a draw after a loss, let's regroup and go on. Yeah.
Right.
We are shown, by the way, that's
his
the
resignation
first round.
from...
No, that's the first round against Fabiano.
The start. Yeah.
Absolutely.
The opening.
A nice highlights, huh?
Sorry, it was like one of those. I was just thinking Hikaru was lost, and I've seen him extend his hand, and that was in friendship, not in defeat.
Yeah. Right, but Pragg took a gamble, huh?
And paid off.
Well, as Hikaru was saying, he didn't know his opponent. I don't think they've ever played each other before. And he said after the interview that if he knew before the round that Abasov was sick, maybe he would have taken a bigger risk.
Yep.
But Pragg and Vidit, I'm sure they know each other. And maybe Pragg feels like best way to play against Vidit is to take a risk.
In this particular case, it was also the choice of openings was so, can I use that word, outlandish, so unexpected that the surprise factor really did, in this case, pay off. Usually, when you try to surprise somebody with a dubious line, they might know something.
Yeah. Look, I have a theory on this one.
Please.
Well, obviously not preparing for the candidates, but before that, you would expect those younger Indian guys being the part of the same Olympic team to work together.
Right.
And quite possibly, he could not really play quote-unquote normal line because they've analyzed it together and they know everything.
Right.
So, well, he came up with this, you know,
And there he is.
somewhat odd, but as it turns out, very, very...
For one game, it was a perfect
for
opening.
one game
It-
it worked out.
It worked out really well, as we see Prague at the board here in Toronto. And with all of the ladies' games finished, now here are the standings.
So I'm guessing Muzychuk's game ended
Ended
in
in
a
a
draw.
draw.
Yes,
Yes.
she just
Only one win today in the ladies.
Had 3 draws and 1 win. So the current standings, Zhongyi in the lead with 2.5 points. Goryachkina closely following, just a half point behind. And then 3 players sharing third place, Koneru, Lagno, and Vaishali.
Nice.
And Yasser, you called it. The sister-brother duo both won their game. Well, Prague is still playing, but about to win.
yeah, that. Yeah, and
Good day for the Prague family.
exactly.
And the standings in the open section, we still have 1 game going on. In the lead, Caruana, Nepomniachtchi, and Gukesh with 2 points. And sharing 4th place soon will be Vidit and Prague.
Exactly. Firouzja, Nijat, Hikaru, all struggling with -1, and 1 game remaining. We've just seen the move king to c8, tickling the rook. The rook went to d7, and oops, that happened very, very fast. A resignation. After rook e7, I suspect we're just
Rook to e5
We're
was
just
played.
chasing down the
Yes,
rook, right?
e5.
Because if you play rook g7, I'll go rook check, and I'll force the rook
this
out.
moves
That's what
were-
has happened. Yeah.
Oh, that actually
So that was the
happened.
last
Sorry.
move. Rook f5, and then rooks are traded, and the rook goes to b5, and
Exactly. King to g3, rook goes to g5. You were about to say, Miro, the rooks are traded. And then it's unfortunately 3 versus 1, and then it's 2 versus none after a5.
Sure, no one would have predicted that Vidit would win with black and then lose with white.
Right. Yeah, that's tough. I'm still stunned by what is this opening called?
you ask me.
They can name it for Prague now.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
it's
Prague's defense. Well,
Prague's
this has
attack.
deferred Schliemann defense.
The Schliemann.
So the
deferred.
Schliemann is f5, right?
Right.
So we call it Yanish,
Yanish
but
Gambit.
it also has a, well, by
Another one,
perhaps
another name.
modern classification has the name of Schliemann, and this one is kind of deferred Schliemann.
If you don't mind, keep going
Press-
down this line until the novelty. So everything was prepared by Prague.
So
till
d4,
What moment?
so e5,
Right.
b5,
Okay.
bishop b3. But okay, so bishop, knight a5 is kind of rare.
Right.
Knight d4, that's what
Okay.
happened,
Yep.
right? Bishop b7, it's only 1 game.
Okay.
Knight takes f5.
Has been played before.
Has been played before, but at the same time, computer has the bird move.
Yeah, castles, c5,
Yep.
knight f5, c4 is the line you've showed
Right,
us.
so I'll switch to the moves, yes.
Yeah.
Knight to f5, what
Has
was
been
that?
played before.
Captured, d6, queen e2.
This is the novelty.
This is the novelty.
And queen d7, and this is where I got tasered right here, Nazi. In this exact
as you
moment.
said, yes. So if
I'm
this
2
happens,
pawns up.
and black about to lose the castle, right?
Right of castles, king f7,
King f7,
and somebody's going to really rock my world by telling me, yes, but Yasser, you're only slightly
You
worse.
have to be really careful not to get into trouble after you've achieved all that. Yeah, so you do this. because otherwise I suspect like rook e8 is terrible.
Right, I get it.
Bishop d6, castles, and look, upon the close examination, we see how it shapes up. Rook to f8, rook to e8, king's gonna hide, and black has a fantastic variation of version of Marshall. Yeah. So pawn down, all the open files, all the bishops pointed at the king. Wow. Right. So it's kind of super clever invention.
I think I retired at the right moment.
Look, we just have to figure out if, say, white has a straightforward way to advantage, which he might have after castles. And if not, then Prag's shown us, a line that you can, from time to time, gamble, maybe in a shorter time controls and so on. But kudos to him for kind of discovering this line and having the courage to play something new, very sharp, take risk, but also put your opponent at check.
Right. All right. So with all of our games from round 3 completed, let's once again just review the standings with all the games in the history books, as we say, starting with the open.
Right. We have 3 co-leaders: Fabiano Caruana, Nepomniachtchi, and Gukesh with 2 points, and at 50%, Pragg and Vidit.
Has 3 players sharing the 6th place. And in the ladies section, we have a clear leader.
Clear leader and clear second place as well. Zhongyi 2.5, Goryachkina with 2 points. And 3 ladies share in 3rd place: Koneru, Lagno, and Vaishali.
Miro, you get final thoughts on this day 3. Spectacular day yesterday. I mean, come on. 6 out of 8.
Spectacular day yesterday. So you're telling me today wasn't as spectacular of a day?
It couldn't have been. It was impossible.
Right. Well, so I'm impressed. Yes, I'm impressed by Fabi. Honestly. Right, because, one thing is to play brilliant chess or, sharp chess, everything. So far, if you look at Fabi's 3 games, the consistency is, it's out of this world.
Yeah.
The stable, academical chess, I would call it, pardon me. So far, I'm very, very impressed. And let's not forget, tomorrow, Fabi gets white pieces against Gukesh, I think.
Ooh.
So clash of the leaders.
Right.
And he's getting another white. Yeah, so 3 out of 4 with the white pieces.
Yeah, that was the start. So that's a big match. And then for the ladies, final thoughts on the ladies as well.
For the ladies, kind of, the spectacle of the round, so to speak, is of course a big miss. For me, it's a big miss by Muzychuk.
Yeah,
because the win is nice by Vaishali, but it was a bit of a shaky game, right? Zhongyi had no problem equalizing, but something that I've witnessed with my eyes, right? It's winning after move 40, and then it's a draw after move 41.
Right.
Yeah, so that's kind of the big disappointment, and in a way, the cross table stayed the same, right? So it's Zhongyi leading, it's Goryachkina just half point behind, and not changed that much.
Lovely. Well, with that, we're going to wrap up our show. It was another lovely day here in St. Louis. We hope you enjoyed our broadcast. Tell your friends where you're hanging out, and be sure to join us for the same opening time tomorrow, 4 p.m. Central here in St. Louis. Good night from St. Louis.
See you all tomorrow.
This has been a presentation of the St. Louis Chess Club. Any reproduction or distribution of this content without the express written consent of the St. Louis Chess Club is prohibited.